Okay, so here we have a list of quizzes which we have added some questions to each one of the quizzes, right? So quiz 2 has these 2 questions and quiz 4 has this 1 question. And the questions are represented way up here somewhere. So that means that the schema that we were using originally to describe the quizzes now needs to change, right? So if we look at the quizzes schema that we had earlier, where is it? Quizzes service is using the DAO. DAO is using the model, and the model is referencing the schema. All right, so here's the original schema for the quizzes. But now the quizzes now have an additional field called questions, right? And what is it? What's the data type of question? It's an array. It's an array, right? Now, what is contained in that array is these IDs. We could say, I mean, if we were lazy, right, we could just say it's an array of strings and call it a day, right? And that would be fine, right? You would, when you retrieve a quiz, it would retrieve the array, right? Let's actually take a look at it. Let's rerun the server. Okay, and if we ask for all the quizzes, indeed, it comes back with all the quizzes. Notice that the quiz number 2 has the new array. There it is, right? Some of the questions are empty, right? But right, we're going to go a little further, right? And instead of using just plain old strings, we're going to be a little more specific, right? We're going to say that this is no ordinary string, right? You should treat this string as a reference to another object, right? And I would like you to be able to, for instance, using that ID, maybe go fetch the original object that ID references, right? Just with a string, it's not going to work, right? Instead, what we're going to do is that we're going to say that it's not string. Notice that if I say type string like that, it would be exactly the same thing as just saying that there's a question of strings, right? But we're not going to say that this is just a string. Instead, it's a specific data type, right? It's a mongoose schema types. It's an object ID, right? And actually, that's what it is, right? That is what we pasted in there, right? Was the ID of those other objects, right? And the next thing also is that object data type, it's referencing objects, right, that actually have a model of questions, right? Remember when we created the model for questions, right? In model, if you remember, when we created the question, when we created it, we gave it a name. See that? That name is a unique name that is used to register with Mongoose so that Mongoose knows all the models that it's maintaining. So here, I can now say that if I ask you to go fetch that object from the database, right, I want you to instantiate an instance of this guy, right, which is this guy, which has this structure, right, of titles, of types, of questions, of correct and whatnot, and all this other stuff, right? Okay. We forgot something here. Correct. We also have the options now. Right, excellent. So now, right, if I restart the server, right, if I go back to the API, notice that really nothing has changed, right? As far as representing data and displaying it, it's still string, no difference, right? Because indeed that is the raw data that we are storing, right? But if we go and take a look at the quizzes model or the quizzes DAO, right? When we retrieve all the quizzes, this is retrieving the raw data that is stored in the database. But because now we have a reference to all the questions, we can say to populate those questions, right? Because we want to populate the questions array. We want to populate the questions array, right? And retrieve that data, right? So let's refresh. If we refresh, notice that indeed now those IDs of questions have been replaced with the original data, right, for that particular question, right, including all the options, including all the types, the correct answers, the titles, everything's there, right? Even the IDs, right, the original IDs. This is the only thing that was being retrieved, right? Instead, we are retrieving everything, okay? And so finally, right, we can now implement things such as retrieve the questions for a quiz. Let's take a look at that next.